Now, I wanted to share some information that I think will be useful about how I'm doing some concept sketches for this project, which will be our upcoming project for this winter. And I started on some of the previous videos, the concept videos, to show how I took the pictures, what angle, how I used them, and how I got set up for actually doing some finalized concept sketches. And there's certainly a lot of do's and don'ts when it comes to concept sketches. Obviously, you can use a computer if you have the computer skills. That's an easy way to do it. And it has probably a lot of benefits that doing it by hand, but that you don't have. But in the final analysis, I'm more comfortable doing it by hand. So the method I've shown on this video and on previous videos, we think we have 2 or 3, I'm not sure. I basically use the simplest way I know possible to get what I have in my mind's eye down onto a piece of paper. Now, in this case of the FZR, and it was months actually before I actually even took the bike apart, I had a picture in my mind. I looked out on YouTube, looked at all the videos of bikes that had similar paint jobs, tried to make I made a file on a computer of things that I liked and didn't like, and I tried to share that and get feedback from my friends. Now, in the case of the 650, what I'm trying to do is put a paint job on that's very similar to the race bikes I had in the 70s. And of course, that was a long time ago. And it's a difficult concept to have because I'm trying to put a 70s paint job on a bike that's 40 years later. So this is going to be a tricky job for me. I want to lay it out with as many sketches as I need. John Pothier is going to try to make me up some advanced level, and I'll go over that, some advanced level things that I can work with to do my final sketches. But right now at this point, I'm just putting ideas that I have in my mind down on paper. Now, of course, it would be nice if I were Chip Foose, I could take out a blank piece of paper and just draw the motorcycle, what I had in my mind's eye. But the unfortunate thing, I don't have Chip Foose or Dave Kindig's talent to do that. And the way I've done in the past, it's always resulted in a pretty decent job at the very end, so I'm kind of happy with that. So here's just a basic thought. What I'm trying to accomplish is to make a bike that looks like the factory might have made it, that somewhere in Suzuki's files they might have had this paint job or something very similar to it. Certainly I don't want it to look like a chopper. I don't want it to look like it came from outer space. I don't want it to have a bunch of weird looking stuff on it. But I would like to have it to be a one of a kind. I would really like not to just make a copy of something. Now, what's really nice about this project, and I think it's really going to work out great, this is a 10-year-old motorcycle. It's due for a little refreshing, and there's parts that while I have the wheels off and I paint the wheels and repolish the exhaust and a couple of other things. But the biggest thing is, I know because I've ridden this bike now for 10 years, I love the way it rides, I love the way it handles, I love the fact that it's as dead reliable, and it's fuel injected, it takes the gas beautifully, and it suits my needs in terms of comfort. My body fits onto this bike real nice. And that's a real important step, because if you're going to customize a bike and you don't start out with a concept sketch or a real clear plan as to what you want to do, sometimes you wind up with something that you're real unhappy with, or something that looked real good on pencil and paper, and when you pull the tape off and put the clear on, you're real unhappy with it. And that's where a concept sketch, the value of a concept sketch is you kind of get to see what's already in your mind's eye. So what I did previously and I think we're on our 4th concept sketch video for this series, what I did on the first couple, I took pictures from eye level height. Now, if you take them as a 90-degree straight ahead, so you'd be 2 feet off the ground then to see, so that wheels would look totally round that way. Yeah, but you don't really view the bike that way. You view the bike from eye level 99% of the time. So I would like the paint job to look correct or look attractive when I'm looking at it from eye level. That's step 1. Now on the FZR, I laid this out in paper patterns and tape so many times because I wanted that stripe to be in perfect alignment along with the white bottom belly pan. A lot of hours got spent doing that, but it started with a concept sketch. And I still have that on a wall in the shop. So what we're hoping is at the end of this winter, we're going to have a completely unique, one-of-a-kind paint job, gold wheels, a black and gold paint job similar to the ones I had in the 70s on my Yamahas, and maybe a couple of custom touches we haven't even thought of yet. But we're still working on ideas. We've had several people, Turbo Steve, Scott, John Pothier, among others, and that have sent me ideas to include in my sketch when I sit down to sketch things out. I've done some rough sketching, but I'm ready to start making some serious pictures. And John Pothier is already working on making me the final one that has no background and has some of the details that we want to have already on the picture. Now, most of what I learned over the years, I learned from painting and designing paint jobs for, actually over 50 years, of model airplanes that were very critical. They were judged at every national championship, and there was always a lot of feedback from the people, your peers, people that were in the sport, and they would be very, very critical of your color choices, pattern choices. There were certain looks that were like, I don't even know how to describe it. They were hokey, some were classic, some were really nice. And I tried to have, over the course of the years, I've tried to share a lot of that on the videos, not on this channel. They're on the Wendy Ertnowski Model Airplane channel. So that may be something you'd be if you're really serious about doing a concept sketch, you could look at how I used to do it for a model plane also. And I did a lot of it. So just to go through the step-by-step of how this evolved for me. I took a lot of pictures. I picked the one I thought was the most usable. Now, of course, a camera distorts things a certain amount. It's not like this is an accurate thing. We're just trying to get rough ideas at this point in time. But this was a picture I took, and this is where I started. So from this picture, what I did, it was very cut and dry, easy. I was doing this on a rainy afternoon. I cut out the motorcycle with a razor blade, just roughly. Again, this is not a very accurate drawing. Doesn't have to be at this point in time. And then what I did, I got rid of that, took the part out, laid it out on a piece of blue paper just to make my background a little bit different. Took a gold pen. I had a pen, a Pilot pen. This didn't come out as good as I liked. It was kind of rough and crude, but I think you get the idea. And what I did, because I didn't have the ability to do this yet, I took a razor blade and cut these, so this is a separate piece of gold paper behind it. In other words, there's a hole in the paper, and I just put a piece of gold paper behind it. And that was one of my original rainy day, rainy afternoon drawings. So once I had that done, I realized I had some limitations. That original set of pictures, I had the tank bag on. It was distorting everything. Just didn't let me see the look I was looking for. And I couldn't see the clearly defined lines because that day that I shot the picture was just too sunny. Things were washing out. So this is a totally different picture on a lighter background with a white background. And this is the one I sent to John Pothier. He is going to, by computer, take off the mirrors just to get it out of the way. Take off, and we don't have to do this real accurately, but just give me the outline of the motorcycle in a separate file that I can do final drawings with. But in the meantime, believe it or not, we have another day that I can't get any writing in. So I decided to spend an hour or two today and see what I could come up with in terms of these ideas I have floating around in my mind. Can I get any of them down on paper? And as I said before, I don't pretend to be Chip Foose, but you can see what I did. This is the original one. This is actually a piece of gold paper, and I just put a little piece of tape on it to push it down. But it's very difficult from this angle to get the wheels shaded right, but I do want to see that. Obviously, Chip Foose would have that a lot better. I wanted to get the idea in my mind, because this is just my mind's eye. I wanted to have something, what I'll call a combination of arrowheads, and they all match, of course. And this is just like designing a model plane where the wing has to match the tail and everything has to look like it belongs. Well, this was the original one I did today. It took me about an hour to do this while it was pouring rain, and I was real happy with it. And this was the second one I did today, and again, the limitation to doing graphics is going to be, and John is going to help me figure this out, whatever graphics we do, we did the FCR graphics together, the graphics need to be black because we'll never be able to print decals in this color gold. It'll never be a perfect match. Even if I use the sign shop, it'll never be an exact match. And I do want the wheels and the color gold to be an absolutely perfect exact match. So what I laid it out with, maybe what that would look cool, and maybe writing in there Kawasaki, and up here the 650R. When I looked at the Kawasaki paint jobs that you can look at if you Google 650 Kawasaki images, there wasn't any that I liked. There was none that I could even steal an idea from. So this is pretty much, I call it model airplane technology, where you have an idea in your mind and you follow that into various areas. So in other words, you wouldn't have this here and then something totally different here. It all kind of matches. So this was, I got 2 of these done today. I was real happy. That was a good day's work. I didn't lose anything. It was a pouring rainy day. So again, the whole idea of this whole operation and the whole idea of this video, and actually of all the videos we do, is to share ideas. And I know a professional artist like Vince, somebody, Chip Foose for instance, they could do this all with a pen. I'm going to rely on John Pothier to make me that drawing that'll have no background. And of course, we can just lose some of these, the parts like that, and the camera mount won't be on the final bike. So, but once I have that, I'll call it a view without a background, then I'll be free to start doing this with the gold paint. And I'll do some of those in real time because I still have some ideas I haven't tried yet. And then I have Karen look at these, and when anybody comes over the house that's so interested, have them look at it, get their feedback. Turbo Steve is usually pretty good at picking up something that would look better or worse. And several people have already sent in some ideas, but the whole basic idea here is to take that paint job from my 70s race bike and put it onto this Kawasaki. So what I thought I'd include at the end of this video is just a picture show, and I'll narrate it and try to tell the story of why I'm so happy about being able to do this to a modern bike and why it brings back a lot of good memories for me. And actually probably for Ray too. It's a great story. Luckily we have some pictures to document it. Now these are pictures from way back in the old day. This is, I'm not sure how many years ago. I restored this bike for Ray, the black bike that's in there. Ray is from Florida and a lifelong friend, Ray Straub. And this was my original 350, or one of my original 350 black and gold race bikes. I had 7 of these all together. You might notice Mo in the picture too here when he had his R6. I love having these old pictures. Now, the classic thing here that I'm trying to capture is the look of these old bikes and the flavor or whatever it is that's the same about it. I want to capture that on a modern bike. And it's kind of similar to what I did with the FZR. I wanted to put the old Ladders paint job on a modern bike. Now, there's a long story to this. Ray came up, and the day this restoration was finished, I took it for a couple of rides. We had some teething issues. But Ray came up, of course, and he rode it. And he wound up buying 2 RD, I think they were both 400s, from Luciano. And here you can see the black and gold theme. I did that lettering on the back in paint. Among other things, the thing that's typical of a lot of my paint jobs, the big stripe going right down the middle of everything. This was just one of those great riding days that we had. And we ran into another group of guys, if I remember right, that had 2 strokes. And I don't think Mark Morgan was with us. But this bike, what happened is I enjoyed riding this bike. I rode it in 09 in Daytona. When I went in Daytona Bike Week, I went to see Ray, who lives in Tampa. I rode across Florida, and then on the way back, we got to Ray's house, and this thing was sitting in the garage. It was sitting actually like in a dumpster. It hadn't been ridden in a while, and we took it out, and we terrorized the streets of the town Ray lives in. And I decided right then and there I had to have my own. And at the same time this was happening, Luciano had two RD400s. These are pictures. I had done some work for him, painted them, made them similar, came up with a custom paint job. And all of these jobs that you see, I had made crude concept sketches. Now this is a GS 1100 tank that fits right on an RD400, by the way. Almost fits right on the thickness of a pen line. And so that was a nice mod. I know Ray or Malcolm owns these bikes now. And this is one of the things that the beginning with this original thing with Ray and going to Daytona Bike Week in '09, it started this whole two-stroke craze that actually hasn't stopped. Now, I thought I'd include a few pictures here of the original bike. This was the condition of my original bike when Ray turned it over to me for restoration. He came up from Florida and dropped it off, and you look close, it didn't have matching wheels, among other things. It didn't have, the tank was a mess. The tank was a Bondo City. The seat, I took what was there, and I think Ray bought another piece of the seat, but I made the rest of the seat from scratch, and that was really a good way to do it. And you can see in the final photos after the restoration how that worked out. It was pretty rough. We made the taillight mount, got rid of all the wiring, put a decent set of shocks on it. These were my original pipes, and if you look at them real close, they're all scuffed up from leaning the bike over in turns. This really was, and it wasn't in this rough a shape when he got it, but it was in rough shape. Kenny Augustine had done the motor, and he had really did a wild porting job. It was very, very difficult to ride the bike on the street and have fun, but it was very fast on the track. Bridgehampton especially, with that long straightaway. And to this day, I remember going down to Florida, meeting Ray at the airport, and we went to Daytona Bike Week, and my good friend Art Thomas was still alive back then. We went for the ride across Florida. We stayed with his friends, and it was just a wonderful week, but we ended it by me taking this bike around the town Spring Hill that he lives in. Not sure if it's Spring Hill or Spring Lake. And it just brought back so many memories that I told Karen, I said, I have to have one. You know, if you want to have a happy husband, he's got to have a two-stroke. So she graciously, on that Valentine Day, bought me the 400 that I still have in the garage. But it all started with this bike. And with the restoration I did, and I put hundreds of hours into this restoration, and Ray supplied some of the parts. We put a new chain and a new front wheel, and among other things. It just was a total labor of love. Ray still has it, and that's what makes it all worthwhile, is Ray still has the bike, and it's still in really nice shape. He won a couple of bike shows that he went to. If I remember right, his son Tim took it to the 8th Mile Drags and was winning some trophies there too. And there's so many memories tied up in this bike. Whenever I tell people I get on an RD and I'm 18 years old again, right here is the reason, and this is the bike. And it sits back in Florida now. I can't tell you, the next time I get to go to Florida, and I'm going to do a little before and after. And by the way, several people still have the full set of discs. We didn't do YouTube then. We put everything on DVDs. Anybody who has that, please return it to me, and I will put them all on YouTube. It'll be a labor of love doing that, but I will definitely do it for all our friends that weren't around back 10 years ago.